So welcome to District 4, the best place to be for information and news. I'm your host, A Love. So we had some technical difficulties, so we are running late. I do want to give people time to adjust and come back or come in or, get prepared. So I do apologize for that. We're normally on time, but, tech happens. So hang on a second and I will get started. Oh, and while we're waiting, I did want to talk to you a little bit about, make sure, this is a good example, why to use the playlist and why to get the notifications. Because in a case like this where we're not able to get on technically or something happens and you may not know if the show's going to air or not, it will notify you. If something changes, or something happens, you always get notified. So this is the perfect example of something like today where you needed to get notified and then you would know that we were actually just having technical difficulties. So I think that's it. Okay, so I wanted to make sure I addressed that, and then also do look at our other series. We have some other good series that are on there, and people love our trials, so you can kind of check those out as that series starts to get started coming up shortly. And make sure you look at all of the videos. I cannot tell you that enough in finance that this is meant to build on top of each other. You have to be receptive as we start getting more and more into the technicals, to the information and to the desire of how to change, because some people want to, but they just don't know how. So I made it as practical as possible, and I also gave you some tips that no other video will more than likely give you. I don't know, I haven't seen every video, but for the most part, it's sort of specialized techniques. So look at those, and then I'll give you a few minutes to get settled and come in. Okay, so I'm gonna talk a little loud because my mic, I actually couldn't get it to work, so I'm gonna just try to scream. Hi, Anna, good to see you. So we are going to get started. So this series built on top of each other, and you've heard me mention multiple times the subject which we're going to talk about today. We are talking about the budgeting with a poor mindset. Now you're like, okay, what does that mean? Okay, so basically I'm going to tell you how to take that poor mindset you have, give you a reality check so that you can have a budget that's gonna work efficiently. One of the problems is when people budget is that they, especially if you have a poor mindset, you only budget your bills. Within the confines of that, you also don't take into consideration that you're not even budgeting those correctly. For example, I did hear somebody that was giving financial advice say, out of all your living expenses, pay your food first. No. that screams poor man mindset. You pay your food first? Oh, because you have to eat, you have to survive. It doesn't really work like that. So, and that keeps you wasting money. Because the first thing you have to learn about budgeting, number one, is prioritize, right? Most of the time you spend incorrectly within the confines of your actual budget itself, if you're just budgeting your living expenses, is because you're not prioritizing correctly. So you need to start with the prioritizing and knowing what you can cut and what you can't cut. Do you understand? What's immediate and what's not immediate. The first thing you should pay is not your food bill, but your housing cost, right? More importantly, to need a roof over your head, right? You might have to eat less, but you need to, you shouldn't ideally have to do that if you're budgeting correctly, but you shouldn't have to feel like you're in a deficit or you're in a panic, for your food bill. This is not optimum or ideal, and it shows a problem with your relationship with money. So no disrespect to the person that said that, but I just felt like they didn't have a good priority list for people that are starting out to budget. So the first thing I would advise is, if you're like, okay, you're talking about budget, you keep talking about budget, you say it every video, I will probably continue to say it every video. But the first thing I want you to do is to think of your end goal. Now, this is something a wealthy person almost does automatically. They don't even know it's a step. They're just aware in that way. It would be equivalent to if you're using a business or even production or anything. You have an end goal first, and you work your way backwards, right? You know the concept before you write a script, or you know what your budget is before you purchase items for your business. What's the same thing in your personal finances? You have to have an end goal. One of the largest reasons people don't budget is because they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what to budget because they don't have an end goal, right? So you're saying, well, an end goal, what do you mean by end goal? I mean, specifics. Now I'm going to give you specifics, and I want you to really take notes so you understand the concept of what I'm saying and why it's important for you to do this, because I can already hear you. People out there saying, I'm not doing that. That is too dreamy. I have too much stuff to do. I'm not doing none of that. But I'm going to give it to you so you can have it, because you will go back and rely on it now that you have the information. So let's say, for example, you want to make $100,000 a year. Maybe that's your goal, right? Or for more advanced people, you want to get $1 million a year. Okay. So you're like, well, I make 22. Like, I'm not even dreaming that big. Well, first of all, I'm going to make this real for you, because people that make $22,000 a year really know that you can make that much money, but don't believe that they can. And it's because they don't have an end goal, right? So you have $100,000 a year, which puts you roughly, please do not, for you math whizzes, these numbers are rough, but I wanted to get the concept in your head more than I wanted the numbers. But do crunch them, people correct me. Okay, so it's approximately a little up $5,995 a month, right? If you're making that much, that's after taxes take home, right? If you make, say your goal is to make $1 million, so your rough take home, would be maybe 44, give or take, monthly, after taxes. Now, I did that on purpose. I wanted you to do it after taxes, when I normally tell you when you're budgeting your own, or being realistic about your own money, to do your gross first. And again, that's going to come later. I promise you, I'll tell you why I was doing it that way. But if you make $22,000, then your monthly is roughly, $15.50. We'll say you're taking home. Why am I telling you all this? Telling you all this because now, once you have your end goal, okay, this is my first goal. My first goal is to make $100,000 a year, right? But you make 22. You know your monthly, and you're going to do the numbers specifically for that salary take home. Now you know the difference. Not the difference in lifestyle, the difference between the two numbers and how far you have to go to get there. Now, this is a reality check. It's also going to check your mindset to check your spending, which is the whole point. I want you to see how far away you are. It's like the first reality check you get when you're like a rich person, and for those of you that are at that level, and you realize how large the gap is financially between the rich and the top 2% or the mega rich, and you actually do the statistical data with that, and you look at that and you realize, oh my God, this is huge. I'm thinking I'm a skip and a jump from there, and I'm really not. This is the same thing I'm doing for you on a personal level, on a smaller scale, because I want you to be able to see it. I want you to know how bad you're living, or what stage you're in. Whatever you're finding out. If you're already making the 100,000, you want to get to $1 million. If you're already making $1 million, whatever it is, the process is the same. Because I can hear the people out there I hear you. That says, I know I keep watching you, but financially I am fine. This is not about that. This is about you budgeting, which is every income level. I speak to all levels. So this is good for you and for anybody else when you want to move yourself forward, right? You watch a regular budgeting video and they go, you know what, you need to do 30, 50, 50. They give you a bunch of percentages and you're looking at them like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Why? Because you don't even have an end result. You don't even know where you want to go. So to you, it doesn't seem real. I also, once again, want you to know how far you are. Not to discourage you, but to give you a reality check. When you're running around buying, cigarettes and going to the movies and eating out and, burning money on vices. It's why I told you it was a mistake. Because you keep taking yourself further away from your goal and you're already far to begin with for most people. Makes sense. Don't send me hate mail, okay? I'm trying to help. Okay, so that would be the first thing you want to remember. Now, I told you before, you have to pay back your debts. This is the way to break this down. Now you know where you're going, okay? I'm making X. Oh my God, I'm off by X amount of dollars. How am I gonna get here? Alex, you told me to figure it out, so I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna get there. When you don't pay your debts, let's say you do all this work. For whatever reason you end up, you got that $100,000 a year, and guess what? You forgot to pay Uncle Sam, which is a debt, because you got in the habit of not paying your debts. Now, if you look at the previous videos, even just the last one, I think, it'll tell you that it won't tell you why it's a mistake, it'll just tell you it's a mistake to not go back and pay your debts. I mentioned don't put your bills in someone else's name. Don't get in the habit of, this is why this habit becomes a problem. This I don't have to pay old debts thing, right? It's a problem for a couple of reasons and on different income levels. So let's say you don't go back and pay your debt and you get your first $1 million check. Guess what goes out of that money? Let's say you're like child support. I'm not gonna pay it, I don't have the money at the time, but later you have the money. Debts work in the same way. If you stay on check systems because you didn't pay that bill and you make $1 million, you're still not gonna have a bank account because they're not thinking about how much money you're gonna put in the bank. They're thinking about you're not reliable with the money you have, right? It's the mindset, right, that goes along with that. So when you make a budget, you must budget your past dues, and they must be prioritized. This is going deeper into a budget. Now, I don't want to give you too much at once, but you have to, the reason why I mentioned the first part is like your living expenses, is because you have to budget within inside of the categories. Living expenses, entertainment, savings. You also have to budget within there, especially if you're trying to now reach whatever your goal is. You need to get yourself closer to that. But you have something to shoot for. But it's all gonna crumble if you have a habit of creating bad debt. It just is. Right? I don't care how many checks you get, if you don't pay those taxes, not only are you in risk of going to jail, but you also will have to pay it. It will just come out of your, what you think you're gonna get back or whatever. Or you have an old, cable bill you forgot about and you go to just get cable. They're like, yeah, no. It's like stuff that you forgot all about. You're not thinking about it anymore. You have gone on with your life. You just didn't go back and pay it. It comes back to haunt you. One way or another, it comes back to haunt you. And so that's why I wanted you to get out of that habit. Another reason I want you to go back and pay your old debts is because it builds good credit, right? I said this a little bit earlier in the last video. Go back and build your credit. The reason why you get penalized for bad credit isn't because you had bad credit, because that happens to people. Especially if you owned a business and whatever the reason is. It is because you did not go back and pay them. it goes to the heart of responsibility. No one's faulting you for having trouble in the past. The creditors don't even go by the past. But this is how it's going to really get you. It's going to get you when you go to start a business. It's going to get you when you go to get a loan. It's going to get you when you want a credit card. Because at some point in your financial life, you're going to have to build positive credit, which we'll talk about later, but there is a such thing as positive debt. You're like, what are you talking about? Okay, I don't want to get into that right now, but I am telling you, that's another way that this not going back and paying your debts will get you. Okay, so I just gave you 3 really good reasons. Okay, so then you want to define what you want. Okay, you're like, well, isn't that the same thing as you just said about knowing where I want to go? It's not knowing where you want to go, it's deciding how you want to get there. Because there's different paths, right? You're not going to be on the same path all the time. And I can hear some of you like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing any of this. Why do I have to write all this stuff down? This is like school, okay? I didn't even like school. But it's not about that. It's about having a future. You cannot have a future if you don't know how to budget. You can budget and still be broke. How many people are budgeting their non-finances every month? Living expenses. But you run out and do a whole bunch of other stuff. Or you don't have a goal in mind, so you're just there, right? You don't feel motivated to do anything else. Right? How many people have a job and they're still broke? I give an example in one of the other videos also that I talked about the guy that made $4 million a year. Might have been in the second video. But I talked about how he was still broke. He still lived paycheck to paycheck. He had a broke person's mindset. Okay. Another part of budgeting is do not have the desire to spend because it's there, right? And some of you are going to look at this and go, what are you talking about? Why would I do that? Like, how am I ever going to? No, there are some people looking at this video that when you get a paycheck, or anything extra, you have to spend it until it's gone. You just don't feel right if it's still left in the bank. No, I'm talking to you. I see you out there. I know who you are. No, it's a mindset, and there's some people that are listening to this video going, I have no idea who you're talking to that would actually do that, but if I don't have to spend it, I'm not going to spend it. But that's not true for everybody. Some people literally have the mindset that if money they call it burning in your pocket, right? Money's burning in my pocket because you want to get it out of there fast. But you have to start rethinking, right? Stop thinking that you can just budget in all the way down to the nub and still not have a savings. Because some people do that. That's basically what you're doing when you just budget your living expenses. You're not going to have a savings. Not going to happen. You don't know what you have. So you're just burning money because you need to spend it because it's in your pocket. Right? So the first part, like I said, do that part mathematically to see how far away you are and just to get that reality check. And then stop. Once you pay attention to that, start building towards that. This part is very important as you start to build a plan. Now, why do you need a plan? You're like, why do I need a plan for this? I already know where I want to end up. Okay, you have to know how you want to get there. Because it gives you, a plan, a way to get to where you need to go. And there's different ways to do that. I mentioned that. And there's different ways to do that on purpose, right? So how do I decide? How do I decide? You start first by prioritizing. So within your living expenses, prioritize them and prioritize them correctly. And include debt within your living expenses. Don't put it in entertainment and don't put it in savings. Count it as a bill. For those of you that are financially free, here's another way to do it. You leased a car or you bought a car. And now you no longer have that bill. You either turned in the lease or you have already paid the car off. You purchased it. Take that money and do the obvious. Put it in the savings as if that car still exists, because you have the money at that point. Don't stop doing that because you no longer have the car. As a matter of fact, you should be relieved because you no longer have that expense. You can put that into savings. Ideally, if you can, you would want to do 30% of your income. Now, I know everyone's saying, oh, what? No, okay, calm down. I'm not saying that. I said ideally, if you can. Didn't say you have to do that. But you want to work towards putting, a percentage of your overall income into a savings. But you're not there yet, then you're not there yet. That's fine. Just start with prioritizing within inside your living expenses. Making a debt within the confines of that. Do you understand? Okay. So after you do all that, you take your dream salary, you've done, a lot of these things, but there's some things that will stop you. And I want to tell you what they are. This is what you call a derail, right? You get started, you ever started something and you're like, oh my God, I'm so excited. And you're, I always use like weight loss or you building something. And you're like, oh my God, I'm excited. I've lost 5 pounds and blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden something derails you. And you either go right back to where you were before or you just stop doing it completely. Here's some of those things that will do that for you financially. One of the things is do not, I can't tell you how many times I've seen this, emulate people you think are rich or wealthy. Stop it. Because the truth of the matter is it may not be true. They may have the broke mindset and they're, people say flossing, or they're just showing stuff, or they have stuff temporarily. I'll give you a great example. If you ever remember the show Cribs, and you would see a lot of those people on there and all those homes and all those cars, do you know, and I can say this for sure, that a lot of those homes were rented, a lot of those cars were rented, and a lot of them were rented for the show. I'll hold on that so you can kind of grasp that concept. Right? You're probably thinking, what? Everybody wants to be a rapper, but the majority of the rappers don't have any money. Not put away. They're spending as they get it. Right? It's a common thing, right? Actors, same thing. Spending as they get it. Some of them spending as they get it and not paying their taxes. So you're like, what does that have to do? It has to do with mentoring, right? You picked a terrible mentor because ultimately that's going to let you down and you're going to get discouraged, right? When you see that they filed for bankruptcy. Or they give you some terrible advice by accident, by not really understanding what they're doing, or they themselves aren't budgeting, right? So why would you're emulating something that's not real. And you don't know who's real and who's fake. So stop doing that. Don't go out and buy, a brand new leased, Porsche because you're financially free. That makes no sense. Okay, bonus. A lease is good if you can write it off from your business. Or car. You can write those things off tax-wise. But I'm not telling you to do that, so that's why I paused. I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm just saying that's an option and that makes sense if you wanted to lease and you were going to upgrade or keep your lease for a while. Okay? That's just a bonus. So emotional spending. Okay. What does this look like? Now you think when I say emotional spending, I'm going to say shopping or clothes buying or something like that. No. I'm going to say you go to the grocery store hungry. This is any income level, right? How many times have you been hungry? You're like, oh my God, I got stuff at the store. And you just run out and you just start throwing stuff in the cart that you probably don't even need to be eating. It's mostly junk food. It's mostly quick stuff. And it is all based on emotion. Right? That's a practical example, right? Emotional spending carries in your daily life, right? Okay, so do not spend emotionally, and that takes different forms. Let's say you're financially free and you own a business and you're like, Alex, I do not eat out. I do not, use checkout. All these things you say, I don't do any of that. How much do you pay for marketing? Because this is an emotional spend, right? You can get easily overcharged in marketing constantly, right? So that is emotional spending. That can cost you, right? Because you're paying too much. Do you have a financial advisor? This is emotional spending, right? If you're at that level, that you can afford a financial advisor that's consistent. You know how many people got taken by a financial advisor? And it is because you're running on pure emotional adrenaline when you choose them. You like them, they're impressive, their office is nice, that you don't really ask them all the proper questions, or you don't know what to ask. You've been, with them for years and you're attached to them now, and even though their advice somewhat doesn't sound correct, you just start doing all kind of stuff. And you are constantly paying this guy, and anything could be happening behind closed doors, or guy or girl. There's no real person, but it's just a scenario. That is considered emotional spending. So don't. Look in the areas where you're making a decision financially based on emotion. Whatever area that, whether you're just going to the grocery store, whether it's where you prioritize your bills. Maybe you put food first because when you grew up, you guys didn't have food in the house and you want to overspend in that area. But do you need to do that? Do you need to have a higher bill for food than you have people in the house? Or car payment? Or anything else? Because it's an emotional, because you feel like you don't want to be without food. Like you're going to, starve. That's emotional spending, right? The things that you're doing, things that you're connected to. If you're connected to your financial advisor because you've been with him for 10 years, but you still don't really want to, you kind of want to look around and find other people, but you don't, that is an emotional spend. And it's a very costly one because financial advisors are not cheap for the most part. Okay? And then shame shopping. Okay, so you're like, shame shopping? What is that? Does that mean what is shame? Okay, shame shopping that's what I call it. Is it a term that I coined? It is actually non-existent. But it is a problem I constantly see in people that I work with. It basically means, I'll give you a scenario. You're at dinner with a group of friends, and the bill comes, and maybe you said you would pay it, and maybe you didn't, but the bill comes, and it is higher than you thought. You pay it anyway. Because you don't want to you don't want to be embarrassed, you don't want to make a wait. Whatever your reasoning is, it is shame shopping. You basically pay that bill without ever questioning it because you don't want to look a certain way. Whether it be you just don't want to look like you're making a big deal out of something. That is shame shopping, shame spending. It's shaming based on an emotion of feeling a certain way if you don't. Let me tell you something from experience. A wealthy person will question that bill in a minute. They are not going to let you overcharge them. It's not going to happen. What? Okay, wait a minute. What? They start checking that stuff out immediately. But a poor person of poor mindset will just pay it. How many times have you just paid your phone bill and there's like 1,000 other charges on there that you're not supposed to be paying, that you don't know it because every year, no matter how high that bill gets, you do not question it, you just pay it. That is a poor person's mindset because that's money that you're wasting. Because you don't want to appear, worst case scenario, you're at the mall with a group of friends and you think shoes are on sale, you go up there and the shoes are not on sale and you don't even say anything. Or all your friends agree to pay for something and you don't say, hey, this bill's higher than I thought, guys. It's just shame, right? And you can get a lot of things based on that. It is just, I mean, people buy the craziest. I mean, you go into a jewelry store, talk about shame shopping. I mean, they will make you feel horrible if you just don't pay that, the Rolex tag price. Or if you get the cheaper Rolex, they're like, oh, are you sure that's all you can do? They just kind of shame you into it. So that's an easy example, but there are other ways that this comes out. But it'll block you, right? And then you don't negotiate. You go to buy office space, you go to buy a car, you go to buy, a vendor for your business, or even on another level, if you're, you're going to, I don't know, buy your kids, something, paying for your kids' school stuff, and you don't even ever ask. Is this what people normally pay? This sounds like it goes back to the same thing, right? It's the same type of, now, the trick here is, these are all different emotions that you feel at the same time, possibly, right? And this is what leads people to binge, right? To binge on something, whatever financial level. Some people binge on cars, they just do it because they like the prestige of having that car that somebody else wants. And so they keep. I can tell you an example, and it's a real example, where we really had to talk the person out of continuing to buy antique cars. It was going to start affecting him on a much heavier level financially. That's how bad he was into this habit of wanting to have the best of these antique cars, which are not cheap. If you know antique cars, they're not cheap. But it was costing him, right? Okay, so having said all that, prioritize within inside your budgeting. So your living expenses, your entertainment expenses, and your savings. I've mentioned that a couple of times to prioritize that. Put your debts inside of there. Another thing you want to budget is Christmas. Now this goes to the super poor mindset because there's designated times that they tend to spend, or people in this situation tend to spend with this mindset. School clothes, you might buy a big lump before the school year starts, and Christmas. My advice, well, it's not advisory. Try, because I don't know I'm not advising anybody of anything because I don't know your personal finances. So these are just generalities. So don't take this advice if you don't think it works for you, because I generally haven't seen what you have. So just a word of caution. But in general, it makes sense to put away, I think they still have them, but they're like Christmas CDs or CDs that mature around the time of Christmas, at the first of the year. Put your money in that, just to hold it so that by the time Christmas comes, no matter what happens with you financially, you can afford to buy or to give your family a Christmas, if that's a priority for you. There's a way to do that, right? Don't just wait until December 3rd and start shopping. Bonus. Most wealthy people do not shop at Christmas time. Not all, but a whole lot of people shop in August, September, a little bit of October. Done by the time all that Christmas season starts and everything is overpriced. There is no Black Friday, none of that. You do it all ahead of time, right? Because it's gonna be cheaper, right? You're not gonna spend the triple prices that they charge you the closer you get to Christmas, right? That's just a bonus. Okay, so some tips. I'll go back over them. Budget your dream budget, which means making the amount of money you want to make. Budget your own budget to see what money you're actually making that you bring home. Both bring home, both net, okay? Figure out how far away you are. Once you figure out how far away you are, figure out how you want to get to where you need to go. A second job, temporarily, putting away a certain amount of your spouse's income, renting out your room in your house, downsizing your own house or downsizing your expenses. I am a firm believer in downsizing. I feel like people do too much at every income level. Can't tell you how many times I've been to somebody's house and I'm like, you're one person. Like, do you really need all of this space? Because with that comes maintenance. You need a staff. You need, gardening people. You need all this stuff to maintain this house. And half the time you will find that they're not even in it before COVID. Probably coming up after COVID. They're not really in it. How many gyms have I been in that it's complete, all the equipment's completely squeaky clean, and I'm like, do you use this gym? And it's like, no, I have a membership. Well, why do you have a membership if you have a gym in the house? Like, this is completely senseless. Like, you know what I mean? So prioritize, budget within those confines, see how far you are, figure out what your plan is, and then execution. Which means you have to discipline yourself. Oh, I said the D word. Find ways to not take yourself outside of that. Now, this is different than me telling you, eat 4 cans of beans a week, and I'm not telling you to do that if you don't have to, right? I'm not telling you that. I am telling you to have a realistic budget, which is why I'm telling you to prioritize, right? So that you can do those things. Some of the tips I gave you in some of those other videos, look at them. Look at the roadmap to financial freedom. Look at, some of the tips that I'm giving in these videos when I answer the questions. Because all of those things you can put inside these budgets to help you stay on track and still, live. Especially if you're starting this and you're older, right? For those of us, right? Those of us older people that, realize, you only have so much time left. So you're really trying to make sure you get in there and maybe repair the things that you did when you were younger. Or for many of you, you are coming back with something. So I want to talk to you people just briefly. You were rich, like, you had everything, but you still had your broke mindset, and you ended up just back where that mindset will keep you. Maybe not as broke, right? Okay. Maybe you're not, at the depths of, despair. But you're still needing to downsize and, rearrange things and, or maybe it's something simple, just like you got a bunch of medical bills. I do know that as a reality that happens for a lot of people that are rich, right? Because medical bills are not predictable, right? And they're expensive. You want your loved one to be comfortable, or you want to be comfortable, or, whatever the case may be, for them to stay in the hospital. Mental illness is huge, so a lot of these things, pregnancy, these things that you're not planning for, that you have these medical expenses for, that you're paying, and particularly for someone else, because someone's like, oh, well, I have insurance, but sometimes you have to pay for someone else that doesn't have insurance. That happens in families a lot, and particularly if you're at financial freedom or below, then you could easily be held responsible for paying for someone else's bills who actually didn't have insurance on their own. And that's a one I've seen, I don't even know how many times. I really don't. The person's just like, I don't know what to do. They're panicking. We're gonna have to sell our house. We're gonna have to, and they have all these things that they have to do because, they thought that, that would never happen, right, to them like that. So, okay, so a little bit about budgeting. I do have some questions. Okay, so somebody said, what is a CD? Keeping money with, what is a CD? Keeping money with. Okay, I'm not exactly sure what that means, the keeping money with part. But a CD, it's like a certificate of deposit. So that's what it's called, formal. But the easiest way to say what it is it's literally you're giving your money to a banking institution, and for a certain period of time. And in exchange, they're going to give you an interest rate for keeping it there that certain amount of time. So they're going to pay you an interest, right? So you could say like a loan, but not, I wouldn't define it that way, but that's the minimum basic lingo for that. That's basically what it is. Now, why is it beneficial? Because it's more beneficial than you putting your money in a savings, because the interest rate on a CD is generally higher, because you're keeping, in a bank, in a savings, you can take it in and out, but in a CD, it's a fixed amount of time. Okay. Good question. What? Oh, wait, should my CD, everybody had that CD question. Should my CD money come from my savings or my checking account? Okay, you need to go watch the other videos, because neither, okay? Your savings is only there for emergencies. Whatever you put in there is when you get the medical bills, you get the business goes under, you get the, I need to fix my car and I don't have it. You get the, my kid needs these things, or I need to get, like, whatever it is that's the emergency. My house burns down and I need to, stay at a hotel for a week. Whatever it is. That's savings. If you're following my method, that's the only reason you use your savings. You don't really, savings, not savings as in your savings money, but savings account is for emergencies, is to put your emergency fund in there. That's it. Do not use your checking account, because your checking account is for your fixed expenses and for your, what you're doing consistently, like bills or, maybe even entertainment or, something like that. But you're not gonna take that and put it in a CD. It would be misusing the method, right? So you would have your savings, which is for emergencies, not savings, but your savings account, which I was saying you should use for emergencies. These are just suggestions. And then your checking account, which I'm saying, this is where your flow comes, your ebb and flow, right? Your money goes in, your money comes out. You're using it for your business, your money comes in, your money goes, it's sort of that flowing account where your money is going to be consistently shifting and moving and changing, because the amount of something's gonna change. Oh, I've gotta buy, whatever, marketing. Okay, take it out of here. I have to, well, if you're not at that level, I've gotta buy, my son's football gear, just whatever. So you just, the ebb and flow, or I gotta pay the light bill, the gas, the electric, phone bill, whatever, housing costs, all of that checking, right? That's why I said don't abuse your checking account, because don't use it as a check. Okay, let's see. Is the interest rate, yeah, I think I just answered that. Someone asked, is the interest rate higher than it is in your savings? I'm assuming you mean on a CD, because you didn't say exactly what you were inquiring about, but if you mean CD, I answered that. The answer is yes. If you mean something else, you need to tell me what something else is. Otherwise, I can't answer that. Is there a penalty for breaking a CD? Breaking the CD. So you are familiar with that because you used the term breaking, right? So why you wouldn't know there was a penalty? Are you asking me what it is? Depends. I wouldn't know that. You would have to ask the institution with which you got the CD from. Or maybe it's a test question, you want to see if I knew. Just kidding. Yeah, of course there is. But what it is, of course, depends on when you got the CD and how long of a term you purchased for or you invested for. Okay, so keep your questions coming. I wanted to make sure that I tried to answer. There's a lot of questions here, actually, by the way, that I will get to, because some of them make references to other videos. So I might do just a Q&A of some sort. But I tried to keep the questions relevant to whatever the video that we're talking about is. Although you can ask other ones. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you click the bell, the notification bell, and comment and leave questions, because we do read them and we will post some of the really good ones. I want to thank you that keep coming every week week. Thank you, a lot of you that don't have time to be here in the middle of the day like this, actually come later. And you watch in the evenings, and you know, some people watch it multiple times, you know, all of those things, and you guys say it, so I do appreciate that. They are meant, somebody asked me this question, I think I answered it in another video. Are they meant to be watched multiple times? Yes. You're not gonna absorb all this information. It's a lot, and I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible, but it is a lot, especially if you're unfamiliar with it. You know, even if you're unfamiliar with almost none of it, it's gonna be something that you need to be consistent with and just kind of look at those videos a couple times. And I recommend, you know, take some notes, and then give it a try, because I hear those people like, I'm not doing that. You know, these are interesting videos, but I'm not doing any of that. But do it, give it a try, and when you see results is what I'm trying to get you to do. I'm trying to get you to see results so you'll know, okay, this is something that's going to benefit, because I want to help as many people as I can, actually. And I can't help you all individually, and I don't have all of your individual portfolios or business goals, or you know, investment goals, and we'll start getting to investments a little later. But I do want to just ease you in slowly but surely to help you get the results. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. I will see you guys next time.